In 1975, Yitzhak Rabin was Prime Minister of Israel. The UN General Assembly declared Zionism a form of racism. The movement to free Soviet Jews was at its height, and writers Elie Wiesel and Leonard Fine launched Moment, an independent magazine of no single ideological position, save, of course, for a commitment to Jewish life. From the beginning, Moment covered topics that excited and concerned the American Jewish community, and in 2004, Moment passed to a new generation that brought its first-rate journalism into the future.
Welcome to Moment's 2022 Gala. I'm Robert Siegel, and I'll be your host for the evening. And I'm here with Nadine Epstein, Moment's editor-in-chief and CEO. Thank you all for joining us to celebrate journalism, art, literature, music, freedom, and Moment. We have a very special program planned. You'll be meeting some truly amazing people and hearing music that will touch your soul. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you that at any time during the evening, you can support Moment and its important work by texting a gift to the number on the bottom of your screen. You can also bid online on unique experiences and art at the Gala auction. Moment has an illustrious history. When Elie Wiesel and Leonard Fine co-founded it in 1975, they named it after Der Moment, a beloved Yiddish daily extinguished by the Holocaust. That was nearly 50 years ago, and the world is very different now. Anti-Semitism then wasn't something that American Jews worried about a lot, and although the nation was sometimes in social and political turmoil, democracy itself wasn't under threat. Well, today, anti-Semitism is at an all-time high. The internet has made the spread of misinformation and hate speech easy. Loud and often suspect voices have replaced civil discourse and thoughtful debate. Amid this cacophony, Moment is a trusted source of information where real thinking is going on, a place the Jewish community can rely on for high-quality journalism, diverse voices, and thoughtful analysis.
I'm so delighted to say a few words about Moment Magazine. It is an independent voice. We need it more than ever, where an independent voice can invite other voices and articulate what is best for American Jewry and well beyond. I congratulate Moment Magazine for renewing the Yiddish periodical born in 1910 and making it vital today in 2022. I want to congratulate especially Nadine Epstein, who is the vital force. She is a force to life to keeping this magazine the most important Jewish periodical that I know of. Congratulations, my very best of wishes.
Today's Moment is not just a print magazine. It's a community that touches the lives of nearly 1 million people in different ways wherever they are. Our print and our digital magazines feature the kind of journalism few publications produce. We ask probing questions, include a spectrum of views, provide crucial context, and we cover stories no one else is covering. Our website at momentmag.com wins awards for both content and design. Our digital newsletters are unique and informative. Our Moment Live program hosts weekly conversations that have large national, even international audiences. And we have some very innovative projects, such as our Anti-Semitism Project, Wide River Project, and Groundswell.
Hello, my name is Eric Ward. I'm a senior advisor at Western State Center and executive vice president of Race Forward. It's an honor to work alongside Moment around the important issues of the intersecting dangers of racism and anti-Semitism and the way that it undercuts democracy. Working with Moment has been the opportunity to explore how African Americans and Jewish Americans can deepen our understanding of anti-Semitism and racism so that it doesn't divide us, but move us forward together. I'm happy to continue that work with Moment and excited to celebrate with you all today.
A lot of the media coverage about the environment is very policy-focused and pessimistic. When I was living at Urban Adama, a teaching farm in Berkeley, California, I was inspired to highlight grassroots Jewish activists, both young and old, who are addressing the climate crisis in creative ways. The result was Groundswell, an award-winning, solutions-oriented, web-only series of interviews with these activists. Groundswell is just one of the many innovative projects you'll find at momentmag.com.
To accomplish all this and more is no easy task. We need your help to ensure that Moment can continue its important work and will endure for future generations. If you're not part of the Moment community, I hope you will join us tonight and send a gift to Moment.
Thank you, Nadine. We're going to learn a lot tonight about Moment and about our honorees through interviews and from people who know them well. The full interviews and remarks will be available on our website at a later date. Our first honoree is Connie Kruppen, a member of Moment's advisory board, an author, an artist, and a leading member of Washington, D.C.'s Jewish community. She's receiving Moment's 2022 Community Leadership Award. Connie recently talked about what this award means to her with her son, Stephen Kruppen, former senior speechwriter for Barack Obama.
Hey, Mom.
Hi.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, first, let me just say that your whole family is so proud of you, and I'm really honored to get to talk to you. This is an award that very rightly honors your commitment to our community, the way that you use your art to express your Judaism and to help other people do the same, your contributions to the Moment community, which I know means so much to you. But what does this honor mean to you?
Well, first of all, I'm so grateful to receive the Community Leadership Award from Moment Magazine. I thank you. And being in the company of tonight's honorees is quite humbling. Congratulations to you all. Well deserved. I'm not a world-renowned journalist. I'm not a famous artist. I'm not a rock star. And I doubt seriously that I'll ever earn an ambassadorship. But what I am is a devoted Moment reader. And I am that because Moment addresses the issues of concern to the Jewish community. And to Moment, readers matter. So I am here tonight to represent Moment's readers, and I'm very proud to do so. And I appreciate that Moment Magazine covers the full spectrum of Jewish experience, from world affairs to literature to culture and arts to food. So I want to thank you for this award, and I want to thank you for all the hard work you do to put this incredible publication together.
How did you come to be a part of the Moment community?
You know, the very first face-to-face interaction I had with Moment was when they reviewed my book, and they did a great job, and I really appreciate it. And then a few years later, my precious, wise friend, Gwen Suarez, said, I want you to meet Nadine. And I met the inexhaustible Nadine Epstein. And she is so devoted to bringing issues of concern to the Jewish community. And she does it with sensitivity and dignity. And it's Nadine's intelligence and integrity and determination that keeps me wanting to be a part of it and really makes this publication exceptional.
What does Moment mean to the Jewish community and more broadly to our understanding of the world around us?
Well, the world is a complex and confusing place and sometimes frightening. I think Moment provides a reliable source and a safe space to learn about the issues of concern. I say reliable because varied views are examined. And I say safe because I trust that the presenters of those issues do so in the context of Jewish history and the knowledge of the Jewish experience. In these days of shifting tides, it's fundamental, I think, it's always important to know our history, but it's fundamental to our survival to understand how the outside world views us and how we then can engage with the outside world to best counter the forces of hate.
Have any of the stories or interviews that you've read in Moment changed the way that you think about things?
Well, I'm sure they have, and I know they have at least altered my thinking. First of all, I learn. My understanding deepens, my perspective broadens. I think that's the point of reading, and that's why I read. And that's why I read Moment.
Great. Congratulations, Mom. We're so proud of you.
Thank you so much. I'm proud of you too.
When I first moved to DC, the best thing happened. I met Connie Krupin. Connie puts her whole self into anything she does. She doesn't just do a home improvement project. She draws up designs, measures walls, and gets up on chairs to hang drapes. She doesn't just buy her grandkids crafts. She writes, illustrates, and publishes an entire baby book. And she doesn't just contribute to the Jewish community. She hosts 100-person receptions at her home, designs and donates Judaica to synagogues, and creates community among friends around her Shabbat table. Connie is insightful, authentic, elegant, and kind, all without ego. Connie would never brag about herself, but I'm glad Moment will take a bit of time to do that for her. Connie, thank you for your sincere friendship and unassuming leadership.
Honoring Connie means a lot to me. I can always count on her to be there for a Moment with wise advice, and her help is always given with enthusiasm and her signature grace. Moment is very lucky to have amazing board members like Connie. We could not do our work without them. The Moment community also includes an array of brilliant journalists and literary contributors. Tonight, we are honoring one of them, Cynthia Ozick. She is receiving Moment Magazine's 2022 Mitchell and Gloria Levitas Literary Journalism Award. It's named for the late Mike Levitas of New York Times fame and his wife Gloria, an anthropologist, a writer, and a dear friend.
If I had Cynthia Ozick's mastery of language, I might find words adequate to describe her. Audacious, brilliant, imaginative, a maverick American Jewish writer, but none of these are really adequate. So I'll make this simple. Cynthia afforded Mike and me, secular Jews, understanding of a Jewish world we never knew. And equally important, she gave us hours and hours of exquisite reading pleasure. Congratulations, Cynthia. You deserve this award more than you know.
Thank you, Gloria. Cynthia has asked another remarkable literary voice of our time, Dara Horn, to read her remarks.
Congratulations to Moment on its 2022 Gala. Moment is one of my favorite magazines. I'm continuously impressed with the wide-ranging conversations found in its pages, conversations about topics so important to our community. And congratulations to my dear friend, Cynthia Ozick, for winning Moment's 2022 Gloria and Mitchell Levitas Literary Journalism Award. Cynthia Ozick is the only author to whom I've ever written a fan letter. Her fiction set the standard for Jewish literature in English, and she also is one of the greatest writers of the past 50 years on any subject. She honored me then with a brief reply, and I have treasured our correspondence since then. Her language is enrapturing, but what's most important about her work are the ideas that her work not only contains, but shapes and generates. To use her unimprovable words, ideas are emotions, and emotions are ideas. And this is what we mean when we speak of the insights of art. It is an honor to be here tonight in her stead to read her words. Mike Levitas, whose life and achievements we celebrate today, was born into a legacy that became a destiny. His father, Saul Levitas, was the founder and editor of The New Leader, an influential liberal magazine that came into the world in 1924. Mike did the same in 1929, and imbibed the wider ideals of journalism with, so to speak, his father's milk. His 37 years at the New York Times embraced everything that human society is made of: politics and culture, ideas, and the royal of Time's kaleidoscopic events. As a leading editor, he presided over the op-ed page, the weekend edition, the Times Magazine, and every aspect and perspective that defines what it means to be alive in one's generation. In 1983, he landed at the Book Review. Mike arrived as the indefatigable journalist he was, which is to say, as an archivist, a detective, a historian, an investigator of texture and tone. He sought out writers for past impressions, themes, images, even gossip. He wanted to know what the Book Review had been, so that he could discover what it might be. I was among those he consulted. Enchanted, I gave him an aging page of the Book Review that I had preserved since 1947, when I was a student in freshman composition at NYU and a fevered disciple of Thomas Wolfe. It featured a literary column that had prevailed in those earlier years, a weekly mini-anthology of passages excerpted from classical sources. Why not an entire month of enlightenment? This was how 3 new columns came to be added. The writers were Marilyn Robinson, the novelist and essayist, Dennis Donahue, the Irish critic, and I. The first week passed, and there we 3 were, anointed by the Book Review. The second week passed, and we were still there. My contribution was on modernism and postmodernism. The third week loomed, and a letter arrived from Mike Levitas. All 3 newcomers were fired. There was no explanation, but the reason was self-evident. Too dense, too cerebral, too static, not lively or popular enough. Duds. Mike went on to edit other sections. But then came retirement. Where, after retirement, might he find his new home? And, to speculate further, could this fertile period of immersion in the Book Review have been a signal and a summons from the muses? After all, he was led more and more to the overridingly literary. His final position at the Times was as a book publisher. Even so, it came as a surprise when I learned that he had also had a signal and a summons from Mount Sinai. And he was now the literary editor of Moment, a magazine devoted to Jewish ideas, tradition, history, mores, morals, and overall culture. It was a revelation I had not expected from the secular credo of the journalist. Anthropologists, too, have a similar credo. Religious thought is what you study as an outsider, not what you adhere to or personally lean toward. Yet Gloria Levitas, anthropologist and writer, is herself a prolific contributor to the pages of Moment, where her observations shine. Together they are the creators of the Mitchell and Gloria Levitas Award for Literary Journalism, an honor and a privilege and a joy that has fallen on my heart like manna. To Gloria and her family, and to Moment Editor-in-Chief Nadine Epstein, my profound thanks.
Thank you, Dara and Cynthia. We are honored to publish you in Moment. Moment is also a community of great journalists. This year, An Inconvenient Genocide by former NPR reporter Tom Gelton won 2 top awards from the American Jewish Press Association. It won first place for excellence in enterprise or investigative reporting, and first place for excellence in writing about social justice issues. It was also named Religion Story of the Year from the Religion Newswriters Association. Tom's story looks at the eerie similarities between the world's response to China's abuse of its Uyghur population and the American response to Nazi Germany. Moment's Daniel Pearl Investigative Journalism Initiative, a unique project that supports in-depth reporting on the devastating and deadly effects of prejudice and discrimination, produced the story.
Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to be taking part in this Moment Gala, thanks to Nadine Epstein and Robert Siegel, my friend and longtime NPR colleague. As part of the Daniel Pearl Journalism Initiative, they suggested I write about the horrific repression of the Uyghur people in Western China. By publishing this article, Moment honors the legacy of its founder, Elie Wiesel. It's following the instruction to pursue justice, even when it's inconvenient to do so. That's the point of this piece. We noted the parallel between the world's indifference to the Uyghurs and the comparable failure 90 years ago to challenge the rise of Adolf Hitler. Even as it became apparent what Nazi rule would mean for Europe's Jewish population, economic and commercial ties to Germany inhibited any response. So it has been with China and the Uyghurs. I have to say, much of the credit for this approach to the story came from Nadine and Robert. I don't think Robert has forgotten any of the thousands of interviews he did as host of All Things Considered. When we were talking about this story, Robert remembered an interview he had done years ago about a New York bank that thrived on its collusion with the Nazis. I just took tips like that and ran with them. Nadine, meanwhile, had a huge impact in shaping the article as it finally appeared. She actually pulled an old editor trick on me. When I sent her the first draft of the article, she wrote back immediately to say how much she liked it and how eager she was to publish it. Then she told me to rewrite it, which I did, and it was immeasurably better for it. Congratulations to Moment and all of you who help keep it going.
Bob Greenberger, a dear friend and a great journalist, passed away this year. Bob helped Nadine create the Daniel Pearl Investigative Journalism Initiative in 2010. It's in memory of the Wall Street Journal reporter Daniel Pearl, who was slain by terrorists in Pakistan in 2002. It's as important a project today as it was 12 years ago, maybe even more so, and I'm honored to serve on its advisory board. 5 years ago, Moment and the Greenberger family established an annual award in Bob's honor to recognize journalists who have fearlessly contributed to principled independent journalism. It's been given to Jake Tapper, Jane Mayer, Evan Osnos, Michelle Martin, and last year to Adam Serwer. Before we present this year's award, Bob's son Scott is going to tell you about his father.
Thank you, Robert. My father was the quintessential journalist. For 2 decades, he traveled the globe for the Wall Street Journal, covering civil wars in Central America, the first Gulf War, efforts to broker peace between Israel and its Arab neighbors, the fall of the Soviet Union, and the end of the Cold War. He loved reporting, and his stories were always fair and unbiased. When my father retired from the Journal, he wrote stories for Moment. Most importantly, he helped found the Daniel Pearl Investigative Journalism Initiative at Moment to honor his friend and colleague, Danny Pearl. I want to thank Moment not only for the Robert S. Greenberger Journalism Award, initially in my father's honor and now in his memory, but also for their friendship and support to my family during his illness. And I want to thank them for their commitment to the Daniel Pearl Investigative Journalism Initiative. My father cared deeply about this project, and we hope that you will all support it. This year, we are presenting the 2022 award to Emily Bazelon, a staff writer for the New York Times Magazine, whose work focuses on law, women, and family issues.
Hi, Emily.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, we're so happy to have you with us. And first of all, congratulations on being awarded Moment's 2022 Robert S. Greenberger Journalism Award.
Thank you. I'm very honored and deeply appreciate the award.
And we're happy to have you here to honor you and also, of course, to talk about your work. So when I think about your work, I don't think this was the official, these were the official words on the award, but when I think about your work, the 2 words that come to mind are bravery and nuance. I would say you've written about some of the most sensitive and emotional topics in the news, from abortion to transgender politics, from bullying in schools to the criminal justice system. And what jumps out at me as a reader is first your bravery in taking these on, because they are quite daunting as topics to write about, I would think. And secondly, your ability to deliver something genuinely nuanced that teaches us something new. So I wonder if, just to start out, you would talk about how, first of all, how you learned your craft and how you were drawn to write about these things, and how do you strive for a balanced approach to these highly contested areas?
Well, first of all, thank you so much. I love those two adjectives, and I will try to live up to them. I learned my craft in a sort of haphazard way, which I think is true for a lot of journalists. Journalism isn't a licensed profession. It's really a trade in a lot of ways. And I think many of us have some help from teachers in school. And I had a wonderful instructor when I was at Yale College, Fred Strebe, who has taught so many great journalists. He teaches, or taught, I should say, a magazine writing kind of narrative long form class, and I learned a lot from him. But I think a lot of times we learn on the job. And so my first job was at a daily newspaper that doesn't exist anymore. It's called the Tri-Valley Herald. It was in California. And it was a funny place to work because the reporters tended to be people like me, who'd recently gotten out of college and were very eager. And the editors had been around the block a few times, and I think we were sort of irritating often in our intensity, shall we say. But I learned there how to be a reporter, and the importance of just going out of the office to talk to people or picking up the phone a million times, and how to look for stories.
Where would you say, looking back, where would you say are places your reporting has made a concrete difference? I know you've been involved in some exonerations of people in wrongfully incarcerated. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I want to start, if you don't mind, by telling you a quick story about a piece that I wrote while I was in law school. So my first year after law school, I worked as an intern at the Washington Post as a reporter. And I had a classmate, Tal Clement, who didn't have 10 full fingers. And he was not an American citizen, so he was trying to get citizenship. And he was caught in this truly endless bureaucratic loop where he couldn't give a set of full fingerprints. He just wasn't physically able. And at the time, we were talking about the INS, and they sort of didn't seem to be able to figure out how to divert him into some way out of this cul-de-sac he was stuck in. And his congresswoman had tried to advocate on his behalf, and it had not worked. And I wrote a piece about this for the Washington Post. And the next day, there was a press conference on the steps of the INS building in San Francisco where Tal was, and he was being welcomed into the building. And yes, they could figure out how to process his citizenship application. And I'm glad to report that he is a lawyer, I think a public defender or a defense lawyer in San Francisco, and an amazing person. That was one of my first tastes of being able to actually have an impact. And in some ways, it's like the most direct impact I think I've ever had. But you're right. I have written about, in particular, one case, Utico Briley. A couple of years ago, Utico heard me talking about my book about criminal justice on the radio. And at the time, he was incarcerated in Louisiana. And he wrote me a letter saying that he was innocent, and also explaining that he had a 60-year sentence for an armed robbery in which no one had been injured. And I wrote back to him, and I helped him find a lawyer. That lawyer turned out to be my sister, Laura, who did an amazing job advocating for him. And then I wrote about what turned out to be his exoneration. And that was an amazing, for me, I think, really profound project to work on because of Utico's force of will. He really was fighting for himself. I was one of many people he wrote to looking for help. And every step of the way, he was just, insisting not just on his innocence, but that other people help him prove it. And so that was a very moving experience and a kind of untraditional experience for me to have as a reporter.
Emily, congratulations on being the recipient of the Robert S. Greenberger Award for Journalism.
And we're so glad to celebrate with you Moment Magazine's 47 years of excellence in journalism. So what many people know about Emily is that she's witty, insightful, and full of really interesting and creative ideas.
She pursues the truth and justice and goes deep in her research and work to make this world a better place for all of us to live in.
But what many people don't know about Emily is that she can make an incredibly intricate lattice pie crust.
She's also a pro at knitting.
And she can read the Torah with very little prompting. Super impressive.
Emily, we are so thrilled to be here with you tonight to celebrate this award. Congratulations.
Arts and culture have always played a central role in the Jewish story. Today, Moment engages people in visual arts, literature, theater, and music across all of our platforms. Among other things, we're the home of the prestigious Moment Magazine Karma Foundation Short Fiction Contest, and we host an online gallery featuring Jewish artists and Jewish art. Last week, I had the honor of talking with Moment Magazine's 2022 Creativity Award winner, Max Weinberg, drummer for Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band. We had a great conversation. The full interview will be made available later, but here's an excerpt followed by a touch of Max's musical genius. Hi, Max.
Well, hi, Nadine. Nice to be with you.
We're so excited to be giving you one of our Creativity Awards this year.
Well, I'm delighted. I'm honored to be receiving this award, particularly in the creative category, because that's what I've always tried to accomplish in both my personal and my professional life.
Well, how is Judaism connected to your music? Or is it?
Well, I think all music is connected to the concept that I grew up with, and many of you will know, of course, is Tikkun Olam, a pathway, lighting the world, making the world better. Certainly in my later years, when at the age of 23, I hooked up with Bruce and the E Street Band. Bruce's music is certainly a beacon for freedom, for participation by everyone. So the idea that you can change the world through music, I have seen up close. I've seen how that is absolutely true. If from the drums, if for no other reason than just getting people up out of their seats to dance. And one thing I learned, when you're involved in a religious service, in a synagogue, in a church, in a cathedral, in a cave, anywhere, in a rock and roll concert, which is a religious experience for people. You're transformed, at the best of times. From the drums, if I'm able to get people out of their seat and dancing, that's a mitzvah. And I'll tell you why. Because when you're dancing, you're able to leave the world, the sort of mortal world, the practical world, whatever may be bothering you, and you're connected to something visceral, physical. And I felt that, and I didn't know it at the time, upon reflection, I'll be 72 soon, upon reflection, it was my own way of contributing to Tikkun Olam and exhibiting a life lived that way. I got extreme pleasure from watching people enjoy themselves. And I know that I was part, whatever level that I was performing in, I was part of that joy. That's why they call it playing.
Do you have a favorite piece of Jewish music? And it could be any genre, like a piece of music that you think people should know about that not enough people know about.
A piece of Jewish music that brings something to the world.
Yeah, any genre. It could be
Sure.
a prayer, could be a beat, could be a rhythm, it could be a...
Yes, well, there's the great Jewish composers from early Berlin to George Gershwin. When you listen to their music, it is all Eastern European. It's all derived from psalms and hymns, and it's instantly recognizable. If you get into it technically on a thematic, rather a theory level, there are modes of music. So, quote unquote, Jewish music has quite distinctive progressions and melodies. Certainly, for me, I loved, and it's changed quite a bit, but there are so many. So you can look at the great American composers for Jewish inspired music. There was a singing duo in the 50s, I guess they were named the Barry Sisters, and they had a song called Sena Tsena, which as a child, I listened to that all the time because it was very upbeat, had a great rhythm. I recently recorded, not so recently, maybe 8 years ago, a song called Mazel. Mazel means good luck, right? And it's a Yiddish song from the Yiddish theater back in the 20s. So liturgically, when I listen to the prayers that you, if you're in temple on a Friday night or Saturday morning, and I always found very moving, particularly when I heard Rabbi Soltis intone it, the Mourner's Kaddish, because there is a melody that goes with that. And usually in Reform temples, the melody isn't used. But our cantor, who was an opera singer back in the 50s and 60s, I remember his name, Herman Dansker, baritone, double baritone, and he would intone the Mourner's Kaddish where there wasn't a dry eye in the house. And, you've heard it so many times, you've spoken along with it, you've intoned it with your fellow congregants, but when you read the translation of it, it is mourning, but it's so hopeful. And I can remember one other thing that, not specifically music, but at the end of each service, Rabbi Soltis, I get chills thinking of it, but in his robes and his head covering that was very, very high church attire, similar to what Greek Orthodox holy people would wear. He would, before he put the Torah back in the ark, he would turn around and he'd hold it up and he'd open it up, and he would say the words, "Behold, this is my covenant." And you didn't see his lips move because his back was to the congregation. And I'm actually getting a little weepy thinking about it, but he did it with such elan that as a child, you felt it was coming right from Adonai. Of course, I didn't, obviously it was just an impressive presentation, but it is a tree of life to those who hold fast to it. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. And that was then, it was Good Shabbat. And that has stuck with me as a wonderful passage for all of us on earth to aspire to. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. So if you can't find music in that phrase, well, come to a Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band concert, and we'll try to educate you.
Thank you so much, Max. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you today.
Well, thank you, Nadine, and thank you to your associates and colleagues at Moment Magazine. I'm delighted to participate in this event, and I look forward to being with all of you in Washington, D.C.
My good friends at Moment Magazine have asked me to demonstrate the first rock beat I learned way back in 1960. And it goes something like this. I'm still playing that beat. Now, what I could do in 7th grade, 1963, I could play the song Wipeout. a surf song by the Safaris, on the drums. It was a drum solo. No one else could play that. And in the 7th grade talent show, I killed. So here's Wipeout. That was the beginning of my career, and I've been doing the same thing ever since.
Hey, Dad, it's your daughter. I just wanted to say congratulations on receiving the Creativity Award from Moment Magazine. This is so exciting. I know that our whole family is so proud of you and everything you have accomplished, and to be recognized by Moment Magazine in this way is truly special and so well-deserved. So I'm thrilled to be celebrating this with you. Mazel tov.
Moment's recent story on the state of Holocaust education today reminds us that remembering the Holocaust is more important than ever. We can never forget what happens when the rule of law breaks down and people are persecuted because of their race or their faith or their political affiliation. For those who suffered from the Holocaust, some stories are incomprehensible for words alone to convey. Our next honoree, Mindy Wiesel, was the first child born at Bergen-Belsen following the liberation of the camp. She has devoted her life to creating a truly amazing body of work that tells her story, which is part of the Jewish story, in a powerful and moving way. Mindy has generously donated 7 pieces of art to Moment's auction, all of which can be seen at the link at the bottom of the screen below. We're about to hear part of a conversation she had recently with her friend Jack Rasmussen, the director and curator of the American University Museum at the Katzen Art Center in Washington, D.C. Jack was one of the first people to recognize the importance of Mindy's work.
Mindela, congratulations on receiving Moment's Creativity Award. So richly deserved. I knew that you would get it 44 years ago, I think, when you walked into my gallery, and you gave me such a fantastic, my gallery, such a fantastic lift with your incredibly thought-provoking and beautiful work.
Jack, it feels like yesterday, really, 44 years ago. It was amazing. Our friend, Helene Hirschburn, my mentor, your dear friend, both of our art professors at American University, and I was doing these dark paintings with my father's number, and she literally took me by the hand and she says, I want to show this to this young man who has a great gallery on 3rd and G, right? And we walked in and you looked, and you were very good looking also.
Well, I was, yeah, thank you.
You still are. But no, I mean, I walked in and it was like instant appreciation, loving the feel of the gallery, you looking at the work and truly saying, which I will never forget, and I've quoted a million times, Jack, you were all of 28 years old. It was 1978, 79. There was no Holocaust museums, books, movies, Schindler's List, everything we've had in the last 44 years. And you said, I'm showing these dark paintings, which had my father's number. And the most moving moment, I don't think I've ever even told you, you got the invitation and you ordered 1,000. And I thought you had lost your mind. Why would you get 1,000? And you said, and I'll never forget this moment, I felt like an arrow of belief went into me. You said, because someday you're going to need it for your retrospective. So here we are, 44 years later. I still have some invitations left. I've used them a lot. And in Hebrew, they would say, Kol HaKavod, which means all the glory goes to you for believing in work that dark, that early, and what it was about.
Well, this, the work was very dark, and I think it's only because I sort of knew where you came from, not not your history with your family and everything, but more about your artistic, where you came from artistically. Helene Hertzberg, Ron Haney, etc. I knew that even though these were so dark, that you were operating from a real place of beauty, and that the whole process of sort of the destruction of beauty, but also the very act sort of creating its own kind of beauty really just moved me. And I thought that this is going to work. It was kind of taking a chance, but very, very lucky. I've always been lucky when I took a chance on you, Mindy.
Jack, really, when you think about it, I never thought about it that way, but it's true. You and I came from a very same language, and we trusted that language. And Helene was tough, as you know. She made me
Very
cry.
tough.
Well, the whole 2 years I was there with her, I don't think I ever left without in tears. And I'll never forget somebody who shared a locker day who said to me, I said, "Oh my God, she's so tough." And this woman said, "That's because she knows you can take it." It's like boot camp, like boot camp. But you understood the deconstruction, and I didn't even understand it. I didn't know, I still don't kind of know what I'm doing. I make my marks, it feels right, it doesn't feel right, it surprises me. I always seem to find light somewhere. That seems to me the greatest part of this whole activity of 45 years of painting. Now that I'm older, I really see that the search, even from childhood, was really, I responded to beauty. And my mother, who, watched her whole family be killed in Auschwitz, my mother had rose bushes, and she had roses at her side, till her dying day. And I think my mother so insisted that I remember that I know, not remember because I never knew it, but that instead of the destruction of the Holocaust, that I focus a lot on the beauty that existed before the war. Therefore, my book, After the Obligation of Beauty. I felt this obligation almost, but very unconscious. Everything is unconscious. Shelley will say, my dear husband will say, I have to think about it. I'll never understand it. 57 years, I still don't understand what I have to think about means. I mean, yes or no, you feel it or you don't feel it. I feel my way through life. It served me okay.
I think it's wonderful that Moment Magazine, found you and recognized you, for who you are and what you've given everybody. And this is a very exciting award for you, I think. So richly deserved, and coming from a great organization.
Well, I love Moment Magazine. I read it. I've been a reader since I think day one, and I just think it really emphasizes so much of modern Jewish civilization, culture, history in the broader world. It's not a narrow viewpoint, and I feel very, very, very honored and very privileged to have gotten to this stage in life and be recognized for my life of art, which, also so many questions. Are you a Jewish artist? For the audience, that this will be going to, I don't know what that means other than I'm Jewish and I happen to be an artist, but Moment Magazine is a Jewish contemporary magazine, and it is a great honor and privilege to be recognized.
Dear Mindy, frankly, I am at a loss for words to tell you how much I admire and love you. Really. You are a friend in the true sense of the word. You are the sister I never had. A brilliant artist and a writer, you teach the world how to care. I am indebted to you forever for introducing me to glass. Here's a piece of it. I just wanted to show you. You deserve every tribute that is given to you. I am so sorry that I can't be at the big party, but my darling friend, I send you my love and best wishes.
Just hours after Russia invaded Ukraine last February, we invited Ivo Dalder, the U.S. ambassador to NATO under President Obama, to sit down with Robert Siegel for one of our Moment Live conversations. As the news unfolded before our eyes, they calmly provided the context we all needed, the history, what NATO could and could not do, and any insight into Vladimir Putin. They also spoke of the resolve of the Ukrainian people and the impressive leadership of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. We then launched a web page about Ukraine that shot to the top of Google search results. Shortly after, we connected with a Jewish writer in Kyiv who decided not to flee, and thus began our Kyiv diary. Helen, who does not publicly share her full name, has steadily filed dispatches from the city, providing Moment readers with an inside look at the dramatic ups and downs of life during the war. Our hearts go out to the people of Ukraine. Tonight, it is our great honor to present Moment's Women and Power Award to a woman who has represented her country at the toughest times in recent history, the Ukrainian ambassador to the United States, Oksana Markarova. Before we hear an excerpt of the conversation the ambassador had with Robert Siegel about the situation in Ukraine, we're going to hear a special piece of music by one of the ambassador's favorite performers, Volodymyr Sukin. Volodymyr is from Kyiv and graduated from the Kyiv National University of Arts and Culture.
Hi everyone, my name is Volodymyr Sukin. I'm a musician from Ukraine. Now I would like to share with you beautiful music, wonderful song about my country, about my people who are fighting right now, but we will survive, we will stay. The name of this song is Ukraine. Дороги іншої не треба, поки зорить чумацький шлях. Я йду від тебе і до тебе, по золотих твоїх стежках. Мені не можна не любити, тобі не можна не цвісти, лиш доти варто в світі жити, поки живеш і квітнеш ти. Україно, Україно, після далечі доріг, вірне серце твого сина я кладу тобі до ніг. Shalom Aleichem, Oveina Shalom Aleichem, Oveina Shalom Aleichem, Oveina Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Aleichem. Ми вам бажаємо щастя, ми вам бажаємо щастя, ми вам бажаємо щастя. Щастя, щастя, щастя над усем.
I want to hear your reaction to recent political developments in this country over aid to Ukraine. Kevin McCarthy, the House Republican leader, who's going to be, it would seem, most likely going to be the new Speaker of the House, has warned, in his words, no blank check for Ukraine when there's a Republican House majority. There was a poll in the Wall Street Journal that showed a steep decline among Republican voters in their support of aid to Ukraine. And there were some commercials by a political action committee run by a man close to Donald Trump, which said, America's in terrible shape, the economy is awful, and Joe Biden's giving $66 billion to Ukraine. He shouldn't be doing that. First, are you concerned about Ukraine becoming a partisan cause in the U.S., or are you confident that there's more smoke than fire here. And second, what do you say to an American taxpayer who asks, "What's in it? Why are my dollars going to Ukraine?"
Thank you. Excellent question. Like two parts of that question.
Yes.
First, whether we are concerned. We have very strong bipartisan support, and it's not just words. We really have it, and we feel that the support of American people, and as you saw, the recent poll has shown that more than 70% of Americans, when asked whether the U.S. should be supporting Ukraine, said yes. So it's very bipartisan from the people of this country. And we also, during this previous 8 months, we saw very strong bipartisan support in Congress for every initiative, whether it's the supplementary budgets or the strong position of Congress and Senate to recognize Russia as the state sponsor of terrorism, or supporting other initiatives that has to do with Ukraine. And I think we have reasons to believe that we will have that same strong bipartisan support going forward. So when we hear people, Leader McCarthy, future leader, talking about the no blank checks for Ukraine, but Ukraine never asked for blank checks. We always tell why and what we need. We always report. And I think it leads to this, your second question: why U.S. has to help us? Why is it in actually American interest for Ukraine to win? Well, first, because we are fighting for the same values and principles on which this great country is built: freedom, democracy, sovereignty, the ability of people to live like they want to live, the ability of people to choose their own government and change their government on a regular basis. This is what we like, and this is what we believe in Ukraine. And this is the reason why Russia attacked us, because this is so different from autocratic regime that we see in Russia. The second reason is, we have to listen to what Putin says, the war criminal Putin. It's not only about Ukraine. He would like to restore the Russian Empire, which means that, and he openly threatens not only Ukraine, which he already attacked, but he also threatens other countries. He threatens Poland, he threatens Baltic states, he threatens other countries in Europe. And I also want to remind that he already attacked us before, he already attacked Georgia before, he already attacked Moldova before, he already did 2 wars on Chechnya, which wanted to be independent as well. He shot down MH17, and we just saw the ruling of the court recently. And he poisoned people on the streets of London. So if we do not stop together Putin while it's still in Ukraine, we will have to stop him elsewhere. And it's very important for everyone, and especially for the United States, as a country that believes in democracy, to show that democracies not only deliver better to their people, that's we know. We see how people in democracies live, even though it's difficult. You have to work, you have to, but we also have to show that democracies can defend themselves from the autocrats like Putin, because if Putin wins in Ukraine, it's not only going to be a bad message for democracies, it's going to be such a strong reinforcement for all the autocrats who are thinking to redirect, to change the borders around them through force.
So what you're saying is what's at stake in Ukraine is more than Ukraine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there is a third very pragmatic reason, especially for taxpayers. If Putin is successful in Ukraine, if Ukraine falls and he attacks one of the NATO countries, then because of the Article 5, everyone, including the United States, will have to defend the members of the NATO countries, not only with the military support, which is going to be even more expensive than the amount of money which is provided to Ukraine, but also with people on the ground. We do not request the boots on the ground. We still have lines of Ukrainians who are ready to go to the armed forces and to defend our own country. So that's why I think, I feel the support from the American people, and it's the right thing to do also. And this is what I keep saying when we ask for the support.
I want to ask you a little bit about yourself. First, you're the winner of the Women in Power Award. What particular challenges, if any, face women in power when women are ambassadors?
Well, I'm not a career diplomat. I'm a financier, and I used to work in private sector, and then was a minister of finance. And then I thought I was going back to a comfortable life in private business when the president asked me to serve again in this position. Being diplomat is a very difficult work, not regardless of gender, because it's a true 24/7 job. And it's a 24/7 job, not only for you, but for your family, for the entire family. And whatever you do, everywhere you go, for your children and for your spouse, you have to serve. I think it's also very challenging for women because you have to have strong support from your partner and from everyone in the household. You have to be able to move. You have to be able to be out there all the time. And it's a huge honor, of course, to be ambassador of your country, but it's a huge responsibility too, especially in times like this, in times of war, when you know that everything you do, so many lives depend on you. And it's not just a figure of speech, it's not every mistake that you can make will result in lives being lost or not. So it's a huge pressure. And I think, we should have more women in these positions, because I think naturally women are good negotiators, and they're trying to find a diplomatic solution rather than a solution with force. I don't want to be stereotyping, but and I see more and more women in this position. I'm so happy that in Washington now, the more ambassadors we have coming, so many of them are women. So it's challenging, but it's also very honorable.
Well, Ambassador Oksana Markarova, thank you very much. We're honored to be honoring you this evening, and thank you very much for talking with us.
Thank you for that honor, and it was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah.
Dear Ambassador Makarova, dear Oksana, my heartfelt congratulations for this award. It is really well deserved. Your efforts for your country, the dedication to your country, are an outstanding example of what good diplomacy is. Congratulations. And let me add, my country stands by Ukraine. We'll support Ukraine whatever it takes.
It wasn't that long ago that anti-Semitism existed mainly on the fringes of American society. That, unfortunately, has changed, and dramatically. Today, Moment is on the front lines of helping people understand anti-Semitism in all its complexity through its in-depth reporting and analysis. Moment's Anti-Semitism Monitor tracks incidents throughout the world. A special Moment Live series brings together experts to talk about anti-Semitism and strategies for fighting it. One of these experts is the outstanding woman who's receiving Moment's 2022 Ruth Bader Ginsburg Human Rights Award, Ambassador Deborah Lipstadt. Ambassador Lipstadt has spent all her professional life fighting anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial, and she's now the U.S. State Department's special envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism. Recently, I had an opportunity to sit down with the ambassador and talk about her work. The full interview will be available later. Ambassador Deborah Lipstadt, welcome and congratulations on being this year's recipient of the Ruth Bader Ginsburg Human Rights Award.
Thank you very much, Robert. It's a pleasure being here, and it's a pleasure receiving this award from Moment magazine, which I have read since its inception. I remember when Leonard Fine and Elie Wiesel were founding the magazine when I was way back in graduate school, and I have read it uninterruptedly. And in recent years, I also want to say, given my new position here at the State Department, how much I admire the way Moment has handled the analysis and the fight against anti-Semitism, charting a very, very solid course, not hysterical, not underwriting, but just hitting the right notes. So congratulations to the team and hats off to the team that's responsible for that.
Well, your mission at the State Department, and I quote now, is to monitor and combat anti-Semitism and to advance, and here I'm quoting, U.S. foreign policy to counter anti-Semitism throughout the world. So where do we stand? Is anti-Semitism dangerously on the rise, and what can the U.S. do about it?
Well, I think it is on the rise. It's on the rise in different forms. It's on the rise certainly in physical attacks on Jews, some of which don't grab headlines because they are only, and I put only in big quotation marks, knocking someone's hat off if they're ostensibly wearing a black suit, white shirt, Borsalino or some other kind of hat, fedora, and tzitzit hanging out. Or it's harassing a woman who's pushing a baby carriage in Brooklyn or in Antwerp or in some Paris or in someplace else. We have those kind of things, and then we have more serious incidents as well. I think it's on the rise. I do know that I think people are more conscious of it and possibly reporting it more, so I take that into consideration. But the increases of numbers are so dramatic that even if you qualify for hypersensitivity, more sensitivity. Hyper, I don't mean critical at all, but people's more sensitivity to this thing, it's still on the rise.
Why do you think that is? How do you understand the cause of that?
I think it's a multiplicity of reasons. It's never just one reason. In some way, we're in a perfect storm. We have supremacists, white supremacists, separatists, militia groups who feed on anti-Semitism, who nurture their followers on anti-Semitism. And they are becoming more emboldened, not just in this country, but in other countries as well. And the irony is sometimes they demonize the Jew, but then proclaim their great support for Israel. They sort of make that weird separation. And that's one factor. I think we also see other places on the political spectrum where it's coming, maybe certainly not with the same violence and vituperativeness, but in a very effective way in terms of their objective as well. I think the other thing that we can't ignore, and we've been so conscious of it the past few months and the past few weeks, is there's a delivery system now that didn't exist years ago. When I first started working on Holocaust denial issues, if you wanted to get material about Holocaust denial, proclaiming Holocaust denial, etc., you had to often get it sent in a plain envelope to a P.O. box because it was illegal to go across international lines. Different countries would stop it. Now, all you have to do is go to Mrs. Google or
Right.
Mr. Twitter or whomever it might be and put in something. And not only can you put it up, but you have an audience, you have a megaphone. And that certainly is.
Which raises a question that it goes beyond how much journalistic attention is being paid to anti-Semitic events. Social media. I mean, to what extent is the rise of social media giving public space, big audiences to ideas that have always been there, but have been on the sidelines before?
I don't want to beat up on social media. Social media is like a knife. I describe it as like a knife. A knife in the hands of a surgeon can save your life. A knife in the hands of a murderer can take your life. It's how it's used. It's how they monitor themselves. It's how they live up to the standards that they have proclaimed for monitoring what is said on their sites. So social media is a big part of the problem, but it's also a big part of the way in which we communicate and further aspects of Jewish life. At the same time, let me focus maybe uncharacteristically when we're talking about anti-Semitism on some of the positive. I mentioned going to the Gulf, to Saudi Arabia, to UAE, and my deputy has been to Bahrain, and I hope to be there soon as well. No one would have, and I'm going to Morocco next week. No one would have dreamt that the Abraham Accords would bring the results that they're bringing. I'm not talking so much about the relationship with Israel. That's the remit, that's the responsibility of other people working not very far from where I'm sitting right now in the State Department. But in terms of their willingness to address issues of anti Semitism, to recognize, and of course, Saudi Arabia is not yet part of the Abraham Accords, one hopes that eventually they will be, but to recognize that attitudes towards Jews and the geopolitical, very important, very severe geopolitical situation in the Middle East for Israel and the Palestinians are two separate, can be seen and should be treated as two separate issues. I'll tell you an interesting anecdote. I know you love good anecdotes. I'm sitting in Saudi Arabia with an older sheikh who's been put on my list to visit. And I don't think he had gotten the message that the kingdom was sort of looking at Jews and the history of Jews in a different light. And he said to me, Ambassador Lipstadt, if Israel solved the Palestinian crisis, there'd be no anti-Semitism. So I put, while listening to my mortarboard, my cap and gown went back on. I'm thinking as an academic, seems to me there was anti-Semitism before there was an Israel-Palestinian problem. Seems to me there was anti-Semitism before there was an Israel, before there was Zionism, millennia. But I didn't want to get into that kind of match with him in terms of history. So instead I said, after a bit of a pause, I said, in my country, there was a surge, a absolute skyrocketing of contempt for hatred of Muslims after 9/11. So much so that in New York City, the polyglot capital of the United States, the city, I believe it was the city council, forbade permission for the building of a Muslim community center and mosque adjacent to Ground Zero. You may well remember this incident. I'm sure you do. And I said, many people I know, including many Jews, thought that was the wrong decision. Why should a Muslim who wants to go and worship, wants to go and pray, or wants to take her family for different events and celebrations at a community center be prevented from doing so because other Muslims had attacked the World Trade Center? He said, you're absolutely right. There is no change. That's a no connection. That's a political issue, and this is a hostility towards a group that religiously identifies. So I paused for a dramatic moment, and then I said, well, that's the same thing with anti-Semitism. Irrespective of how you feel about the Israel-Palestinian issue crisis, that doesn't give you license to go around hating Jews or fomenting hatred of Jews. And of course, Saudi Arabia was for many decades, I don't think it's not the case right now any longer, one of the exporters of imams who would go to Europe and other places and preach anti-Semitism. So they listened to me. I met with fairly high-ranking ministerial officials. I met with one deputy foreign minister who, when I entered his office, put out his hand and said, I come from a city of Jews, Medina. And I said, Medina. And he said, correct. So does that mean everything is solved? No, of course not. Does that mean there aren't human rights problems in Saudi Arabia? No, of course not. There are human rights problems in our country too. But does that mean there's an opening of line of communication? I think there is, and that's something that is affirming.
One other question. You've been awarded Moment's Ruth Bader Ginsburg Human Rights Award, and I wonder, did you ever know or meet Justice Ginsburg?
I never met her. I actually we were once honored at a UJA Lion of Judah event, and I sat next to her, but I didn't really know her. But I do have Ruth Bader Ginsburg socks, which I wear periodically. But she was, when you look at her story and you hear her deep-seated commitment to equality, to fairness, it comes out of such Jewish roots. And when she once talked, I think she was on medication, so she fell asleep during the State of the Union address. And afterwards, she said her granddaughter called her and said, Bubby, you can't do that. And my heart melted.
Well, Ambassador Deborah Lipstadt, once again, congratulations on your being named this year's recipient of Moment Magazine's Ruth Bader Ginsburg Human Rights Award. And thank you very much for talking with us.
Thank you. I love our conversations. And even if you don't give me another award, I'm always willing to be in conversation with you, Robert. Thank you very much.
Deborah, we are so delighted to honor you this evening with Moments 2022 Ruth Bader Ginsburg Human Rights Award. Your long and deep expertise in Holocaust history, your tireless fight against Holocaust denial, and your passion for combating anti-Semitism everywhere make you a perfect recipient for this award. I have been privileged to call you my friend for many years, and as chair of Moments Advisory Board, it is especially meaningful to join you here this evening. Thank you for your lifetime of advocacy on behalf of human rights, and congratulations on this well-deserved honor.
What a great pleasure it is to recognize Ambassador Deborah Lipstadt as a 2022 Moment honoree. Ambassador Lipstadt has worn many hats during a storied career: scholar, educator, author, activist, and now the U.S. State Department's special envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism. In each of these roles, she has upheld historical truth, courageously fought the haters and deniers, and strived to ensure that the world never forgets the memory of the victims of the Holocaust. We are all, U.S. citizens and world Jewry, supremely fortunate that in a time of growing and frightening Jew hatred, we have an individual of Ambassador Lipstadt's knowledge, conviction, personal integrity, and courage to lead the fight against worldwide anti-Semitism. Congratulations, Ambassador Deborah Lipstadt.
One thing that Jews know well is that humor helps us through the tough times. That's why over the last 2 years, Moment has spent a lot of time asking people for their favorite Jewish joke for our Best Jewish Jokes project. That's also why we published Spice Box, the popular collection of bloopers and curiosities that has been featured in Moment ever since it was founded. And that's also why, over a decade ago, we created our very own cartoon caption contest with the help of Bob Meinkoff, the former cartoon editor of The New Yorker, and editor of Moment's book, Have I Got a Cartoon for You? Bob is going to tell us why Jewish humor is more important than ever to Jewish life.
I've been asked why Jewish humor is more important than ever to Jewish life. I don't think it is. I think it's always been important. It's always been part of who we are. We're the Casa Nostra of humor. Casa Nostra means our thing. This is our thing. This is our thing going back a long way. Everybody else is a Johnny come lately or a Jenny come lately to humor. I think it all starts with us. It starts with Job. Our religion questions God. It catches right from the start. It complains. Okay, we're not satisfied. It's sort of right from the start, it's Larry David. It's what's wrong. And all of humor is about what's wrong. And for the Jewish people, what's been wrong has been wrong for a long time. Anti-Semitism in the past, anti-Semitism in the present, and unfortunately there will be anti-Semitism, in the future. And we deal with it. My shrink said, "You use humor as a protective mechanism, don't you?" And I said, "Yes, and I wish it was doing a better job." And I will say that we do use it as a protective mechanism, and I wish it was doing a better job. And that's why we also have security people at synagogues, because humor itself will not do, quite enough. I think one of the things, when you look at the roots of Jewish humor, where does it come out of? It comes out of because we're people for whom argument is our mindfulness, okay? We argue. We argue with God. We argue with each other. But whereas when the Catholics and the Protestants argue with each other, you have the 30 Years' War and millions of people are killed. We don't kill each other, okay? We we slay each other with jokes. That's our thing. And so, we don't have a hierarchy. We've got a rabbi. We don't, in Catholicism, you have a doctrine of infallibility. That doesn't make any sense to us. Everybody's fallible to us. We're all sort of fools. That's why we have our words we got Schlemiel, Schlemazel, Schmendricks, and by the way, also Nobel Prize winners. So, that's who we are. We're funny people, and we use that to illuminate our understanding of the world. To some extent, what Jewish humor is you can say what it's not. Recently, there was an obituary in the New York Times for Gallagher, the comedian, who smashed watermelons. That was his humor. That's not our humor, okay? If I would say what my favorite Jewish joke is that sort of sums it up, it's the difference between a Jewish pessimist and a Jewish optimist. A Jewish pessimist says, things couldn't be worse. An optimist says, they could be.
The great journalists at Moment Magazine are doing award-winning work. They're producing stories that you won't find anywhere else. I'm always impressed with their thoughtful, balanced journalism and creative projects. I hope you will join me in supporting this important organization. Thanks so much for your support.
We're now coming to the end of our program, and I want to thank all of you who joined us this evening. Your support makes Moments Work possible. So let me second Wolf. Please text a gift to Moment at the number at the bottom of the screen. And don't forget to visit the online auction at the link below, where you can bid on Mindy's art and on some exciting experiences. The auction closes December 1st at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. However, to make sure you get the experience or the piece of art that you want, you can choose the Buy Now option.
Thank you so much, Robert. As always, you've been a wonderful master of ceremonies. Before we leave, I want to again congratulate tonight's amazing honorees and thank our special guests. And thank you to everyone on the Moment board, the Greenberger family, the Levitas family, our volunteers, and the incredible Moment team, especially Suzanne Borden, Erica Cash, Tanya George, Pat Lewis, John Oraskin, as well as Molly Foster, Wally Pedrazik, and John O'Leary. We could not do this without you. And a special thank you to tonight's major sponsors: Allianz Insurance Company of North America, Andrew Ammerman, Catherine Gandel, Lloyd and Victoria Goldman, Seth Goldman and Julie Farkas of Make the Change, Carl Joseph, Robert and Arlene Kogod, Connie and Jay Krupin, Elizabeth Scheuer and Peter Joseph, Leonard and Celia Schuckman, the Toby Foundation, Robert and Sherry Weiner, and to all of our other supporters.
And thank you again for being such a great audience. Stay healthy and stay safe, and best wishes for the holidays.
Thank you all. Happy holidays.
That's my spritz. That's my Jewish spritz. All right, that's it. I've done my best. I gave it my shot. I can't do it again. I'm old. I got to take a nap.